When you have animation on your website, you have to make sure that it is very smooth. Otherwise, if it's jagged, then your users will think that your site is broken or something, and they will not spend that much time on your website. So it's always good to have smooth animation. It will make sure that your users will spend more time and have a greater experience on your web application. What you're currently looking at is some great animation UIs that are trending at the moment. As you can see, they're very smooth and look great and will provide a good experience to your users. For this tutorial, we're going to be building an animation UI using Vue 3. In VueJS, there is specific features that allows you to build animations. This is mainly to do with transition. As you can see here, I'm looking at an enter and leave transition. And in the code, you'll have a tag called transition, and you wrap it around the thing that you want to animate. Then in the CSS, you can specify how you want to animate it. So what we're going to be building is this a friend list type demo where you can add a friend or remove a friend, and you can also shuffle the entire list. So when I add a friend, I'll insert it at a random position, and when I remove it, it removes a random friend from the list, so that we're just trying to simulate a real application, because we don't really have the back end. We're not going to do the back end. We just got some dummy data, and we're just playing around with the dummy data. So as you can see, they're more or less the same friend information there. So you can see the animation when I add something, it will bounce in, and when I remove something, it will bounce out. Okay, let's get started with the coding. So I'm going to be using Visual Code for our code editing. So I'm going to first create a folder on the desktop called Vue app. Okay, so then I'm going to go into Visual Code. I'm going to open that folder up. So it's on the desktop. Vue app, select. Okay, so then I'm going to go into the terminal and create a new terminal window, and then I'm going to type in. So first of all, I'm going to check which version of Node that I'm using. It should be above 10. So if I do Node and / version, and I'll get the number. So I'm using version 10.14. So anything sort of in around plus 10 should be okay. And the command that you need to install Vue CLI is npm install -g and at Vue CLI. Okay, so you should run that, and then it should install the CLI. So once it's installed, we can check which version that we're using. So if I do Vue and / version, and it will tell me what CLI I'm using. So I'm using CLI 4.58, so that's the version that you'll be using. Okay, next we want to create an app. So we go to the command again and go type in vue create, and we're going to call it friend list app. Right? Yes, app. So this should give me some options how to build it. So we can create a version 2 Vue app, or we can set it to create a version 3 app. So that's the one that we want. So we use the arrow key and select Vue 3 preview, and this will create a Vue 3 app. Okay, so it's installed our friend list app. Now what this has created is a bare bones application that we can use to build our app. So it's put the folder structure in and all the configuration files for the package.json and various other sort of configuration for the Vue application. Okay, so if I type in npm and cd, it says here, you know, cd into the directory. So cd into friend list app. Oops. Okay, then we want to run npm run serve. Now this is going to open up the application in a browser. So as you can see, it's saying it's running at local 8000, port 8000. So if I do alt click, and that should open up the browser. So this is our app, and it's running on local 8000. Okay, so that's working. So now if I take a look at what it had installed, all our files will be under the source directory here on the left hand side. Okay, so I've got the main file. The main.js is like the important file that glues together your application. So the main.js, what it does is it mounts your application onto the HTML index.html, which is in the public directory. We'll go to public directory and go to HTML. So this is the raw HTML file that your application will use, and your component will be mounted or injected into this div over here. So div id equals app. So we don't need to touch index.html. So if I go back, now I'm going to go to the app.vue. So we've looked at main.js. Main.js has imports an app from app.vue. Okay, that is our component. So if I go to app.vue, okay, this is the main app component, what create app created. So you got three sections there. You got the template, and you got a script. So if I minimize that, so that's the template, and that's the script, and that's the. So you got three sections: template, script, and style. So, but quickly look at the template. Template is outputting an image, and it's also inserting a component called hello world. So that's, and if I look at the script part, okay, the script part, it's calling the component hello world. So it's saying import hello world from this location. So we're using this component within our app, but we don't need to use another component. We're just gonna write it in one file, so we don't need that. So this is the part that gets exported into the main.js. Okay, so this is where we're going to write our code for our app. Okay, and this is where we're going to put in our styling information. So let's just clean this up. We don't need this, so we just delete in the template part. And we don't need this. We're not going to use the hello world component. Okay, so and we're gonna call this friend. Well, I'll leave it. We'll leave it as app, so it just makes it easier. And so we don't need. We're not gonna have a component there. We're not loading the component, so right. So and we're not gonna need the styles. And what we can also do is we can move the template part down. So I just put the script at the top, and template will be down here. So this just this is easier for me. You can leave the template at the top. So we're going to have the script part, and we're going to be building. So next, I'm going to create a sort of a skeleton structure for our app component. Okay, so every Vue component will have some data and some methods to manipulate the data or do something else. So, right. So in this component, we're going to declare the data as a method. So it's data. And it's going to return an object. So it's going to return, and we just call it a test for now. So this is the data. Okay, so so it's going to return that. Okay, then we need methods, so we put a comma there, and we the methods would be declared as an object, and and we're going to put all the methods here. So it's going to be add. So we'll put a comment there and add the next method, which will be remove, and then it's a shuffle. So we have our methods. So in the template section, we're just gonna output the data. So just do a p and so when we want to output a piece of text in our data, then we just we want to include it as a variable in our template. So we use this curly brackets, this double curly brackets, and inside there we put in the variable. So we put test. So if I save that and then go to our app, so we haven't got a template. So I forgot the p tag. Oops. So if I go back now, so we got the word hello there. So that's working. All right. So our data is available in our template. So if we add another piece of data there, say test 2, and say world. So if I save that and and I put in, just put some bright lines there and double curly brackets, and I put test 2 and save. So got hello world. So that's the mechanism of Vue. So you put in the data in your data method and it's available here in the template. Okay, so I've got rid of the test that we've done. Now I'm going to start to build a sort of a skeleton structure. Okay, first we need a wrapper. Okay, within that wrapper we're going to have a section for our buttons. So I'm just going to put a div there and put in a button for, so these are going to be the buttons for our app for adding, removing and shuffling. So this is going to be add. So when I click on this, it will add another friend onto the friend list, and another button for remove. So this will remove a friend from the friend list, and then another button for shuffle, which will shuffle the friend list. So that's that. Next, we need to put in a unordered list. Okay, so this is gonna be the container for all our friend list. So I'm gonna have list items in there. So I'm gonna have a list item, and I'm gonna give it a class name list item. Okay, then within there I'm gonna have a content section, and within the content section I'm gonna have an image, and then I'm going to have a main section. Within the main section I'm gonna have a header. Okay, the header is gonna be it's gonna have 2 spans. That's gonna display the name and the time that they last logged in. Okay. Okay, then we need a body section. Okay, the body section will just have some status message. And that should do it. Oops. Okay, that should do it. Okay, so if I save that and look at it, right? Okay, so it's got the buttons in there, and it's got the text, and it hasn't got the image. So they're things that we're going to be doing next. Okay, next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get an image for our friend list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a site called Pixels and just type in face, and you get some photos of face. So I'm going to choose this one. I'm going to look for long sort of portrait faces, and so I'm going to choose this one, and I'm going to click into it and right click, and I'm going to copy copy image link. Okay, I want to copy the image link, and I'm going to go back, and then I'm just going to paste it in there. So wait a minute. So I'm going to paste it in between in the source, inverted commas. I'm going to paste it inside. So now we got an image for our friend list. So I'm gonna just go in and look at our app. So our app has got an image now, and it's got the image, and it's got the header and the body text there. So with the styling, we're gonna adjust all the sizes and colors and the formatting. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, now that we've got the markup for our buttons and our list, and we've hard-coded the list in with some basic content with with an image and name and time and some body text. So in order to, we will go to styling our list now. So I'm going to go to the style section, okay, and I'm going to first give it some basic HTML body text styling, mainly the reset styles and the font, setting the fonts, and just general basic stuff. So here I've got the HTML, setting the font here. So open sans, reset, setting all the margin, padding to 0, setting it box sizing. And then we got the body as 100% and setting it as flex. Setting it as flex, then this allows us to center it, as you can see here, and I'm setting a background to this sort of turquoise blue color. So then we go on to the buttons. Okay, so if I give it the general styling, giving it padding, and border width, background color is transparent. I'm going to give it a color of black for text, and font family, font size will inherit. We're not going to worry too much about the styling. So border radius 5 pixels, and give it margin right. Then when it's hovering, we want to give it a different color. So we're going to give it a white color. When it's in focus, we don't want the outline, so put it as the outline none. So if I save that and look at our site now, okay, so you see the buttons when it hovers, and it's got the rounded corners, and the photo is still large. We haven't done that yet. So and we got the text for the content for our list. So that's the styling for the buttons and the background. Okay, now that we've got the buttons sorted out, we can go onto the friend list and the list items and the list content. So first of all, we want to do the UL element, which contains the list items. So I'm just going to give it some position relative padding top, 18px and width. Then we're going to go into the list item. We're going to say display block and margin top, and we're going to give it a width of 100%, height of 100 pixels, position relative and overflow hidden, and give it a border 3px solid and a sort of a light blue border there. Then we're going to go into the list item. Sorry, we're going to do the border radius, which is 5px. Then the list item of img, so that's the image, and this is going to be display block. Going to give it a radius of 50%, so it's going to give it that circle effect. Height of 60 pixels, margin top and top and bottom 0, and on the sides 10px, and width is 60 pixels, and border is 4 pixels solid, and it's got a sort of a light grayish. Okay, so if I just save this, and we can see how that appears. There you go. So it's looking better now. So I've given this border and to match with the button border, and the image is made smaller, and got a circle around it. So that's coming on fine. So next we're going to go to list item content. So we're going to align the item center. So the background's going to be white. It's going to be a display flex item. So we can get everything aligned and sized properly. So I'm going to justify the content space between. The left 0 and the width is 100%. So padding top is 10 pixels on the top and 0 on the side, right? So then we go into the list item time element, which is just going to give it a bold font for it, and give it a lighter color. Okay, let's just save this now and see what we have in the browser. Okay, so we've formatted the content in our friend list items. Okay, so giving it white background and tidied up the text. Okay, so we still got this big gap there, so we can quickly adjust that. And if I think is to justify content. Okay, so if I save that and look at it again. Okay, so that's that. Now next thing, we need to introduce some data into our application. So we need an array of list items or friend list that we need to display in our front end. Okay, so at the moment we got the data that we have is just the test data. So we're going to replace that with a list. So we're going to have a list item with ID, name, time, and some text to display the status or whatever message that you want, and then we have an image as well. So what I've done is I've got 3 list items, okay, and we also got a data item for a maximum ID, so it's to keep a track of how many items we have in. So for the image part, we like we've done before, we can just copy an image location and add it into there. So you can use the same image that we used previously. So just cut and paste in there. So we're not too worried about it. They're all sort of same data, and just for testing purposes only. So I filled in the image path there. So with the same image. So now we got the data in there, so we need to test it out. So we can console. We can do that in this method. We use mounted. Mounted means when the application is loaded and rendered, then we can do some processing here. So what we want to do is we want to look at the data. So we want to console.log and stringify the array, because the list item is an array, so we need to display in the console.log as the array data items. So this is the way to do that. So if I save that and we go back to the application, okay, we refresh. Okay, so if I bring up the developer tools and we look at console.log, okay, so we got the data there. So it's got the item, ID, name, Ashley, Adams, time, 2H, and that's all the data that we put into the array. So the array is being recognized, and it's within the application. So that was just a test to do that. Okay, now we got the data. We need to link the data to our template. So we need to link it to the list here. So in Vue, there is a looping attribute. I'm in the Vue documents here, and I'm in the v4 section, and in there you can you have an attribute called v-4 and then equals to, then you have your data array, and then you have a name for the item, each item in the array. So this is basically just a for loop looping through the array. So, and also you need to specify a key, so which is going to be like the ID of the array, so that when you in our demo, we're going to be deleting, removing, and shuffling things around. So we need to maintain the state. So we need a unique identifier for each list item. So this is we can do just copy and paste that out and change it. So we want to do a for loop for the list items. So I'll just paste it here. So our array is called list. So we just call it list. Just want to make sure list. Yep, list. Okay, so it's going to go through our array list, and then it's going to look at individual item, and we're going to refer to the we got an ID there. So each item in the list, we've got an ID, so it's going to use that as a key reference. So this, if I save this and I go to the browser, okay, now what you see here is it's iterated through our array, but the details are the same. So we haven't because we hard coded the details in. It's just going through the array and just displaying the hard-coded list item. So here you can see we've got the hard-coded list item here. Okay, now what we can do is we can change all these hard-coded values and change it to our array items. Okay, so the way to do that is you've got to do double curly brackets, and inside the double curly brackets you put the data item. So it's item dot, this is going to be the name. Okay, and this is, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to say double curly brackets, and it's going to be item dot time, and here it's going to be item dot text. And this is going to be, now this is going to be a different way we need to do that. We need to do a vbind. Okay, if it's attributes, then we need to do a vbind, which is vbind and colon, and then in the inverted commas we need to replace that with the item dot, I think it's image, and let's just check, it's image, yeah. So so if it's the content of a tag, then you put curly brackets, but if it's within the attributes, then it's a vbind, and then you put the data item or the array item in there. Okay, so if before I save, okay, I just need to make sure that we're just going to change these numbers because they're the same numbers as the hard-coded value. So put 1, 2, and 3 hours, or 4 hours. Okay, and the second person we say Ben Scott and Judy Smith. Okay, so we know it's going to be different data now. Okay, so if I go and check, okay, so first one is Ashley Adams, Ben Scott, Julie Smith. Okay, so, and it's got like the different photo there, and so we know the hard-coded value, this is the value from the array items. So now we need to activate these button functionality. So at the moment when you click on these, they don't do anything, so that's what we're going to be doing next. So to add the functionality for our buttons, we need to go to the template area where the buttons are. So in order to add functionality to these buttons, we need to do we need to give it a click handler, and to do that we need to type in the following: at click, then equals to, and the function name. So here we got click equals to, and it's going to call the add function. Okay, so, and we do the same for the remove. So it's click at click equals remove, and same for the shuffle. Okay, so next we need to go back to where our functions are. So as you see, we've got add, remove, and shuffle. We're calling it there, and this will be our method. So we got add, remove, and shuffle there. So to test this out, we just add in an alert, so that to the add method. So it's add clicked, and also a alert for remove, and also for shuffle. So if we save that, so once again all we done was add a click handler calling the method add, and for the click handler for the remove, it calls the remove method, and for the shuffle, calls the shuffle method, and we had the methods there already. So we'll save that and look at our browser now. Okay, so just to refresh just in case. Okay, so we got the button. If I click and it says add clicked, remove, and it's removed. Shuffle, so it's calling the shuffle as well. Okay, what that means is we've wired in the button handler functionality. Now we need to sort of put in the code for it, the logic of what it's supposed to do. Okay, now we're going to write the code for the add, remove, and shuffle buttons. So we're just going to remove the alert code that we wrote to test our functionality earlier. Okay, here I've added a new method called random. Okay, this is just a method to get a random number. If we give it a number, it will return a random number between that range. So if I say 5, it'll give you a random number between 0 and 5. So I've just wrote that to make it easier, so I don't have to repeat the code. So I'm going to use that in when you're adding. I'm going to insert it at a random position. When I'm removing, I'm going to remove at a random position, and then when I'm shuffling, I'm going to randomize the order. So this is going to be used in all these methods. Okay, so first of all, we'll start off with the add functionality. So first, in the add, we're gonna create a dummy data item. In real life, you'll get this data from somewhere else, and you'll inject it into the array. Okay, so we're gonna create a dummy item here, and it's gonna have ID, name, time, and an image and text. So as you can see, I've got ID equals this dot max ID, so it's increasing max ID and is setting it as the new ID. So the max ID is the number of items we have in the array. Okay, then we're going to create an index, a constant index, which will be a random number within the array that we're going to insert. Then we're going to do a list splice. Splice will insert. It will insert and delete, but so the first parameter will say which position, and the second parameter will say do we want to delete or insert. So 0 means insert, add. Okay, so we're adding a data item in the position of index. So that's the item that we've created over here. So it's injecting that into the array. Okay, let's just see what that Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, so I'll refresh again, so it's adding. Let's go back. Okay, next we're gonna do the remove, which is gonna be quite simple. So first we're gonna select an index, which is the random number. Then so be the random number within the array, and then we're going to do a list splice and remove that item. So that's what splice. When we have the second parameter is 1, then we're saying remove this item. So we don't need a third parameter. We only use a third parameter if we're going to add, which is 0. Okay, so that's something to note. So if I save that and have a look, so adding works, now removing works. Okay, so I can remove everything and add everything. So next, shuffle. Okay, so if I go now, the shuffle, we're going to create an array, an empty array called shuffled, and this is where we're going to create the new shuffled array. So then we're going to have a while loop. We're going to go through the list array and go one by one, and then we're going to randomly remove one item, then put it onto the shuffled item. Then we're going to be decreasing the list array and increasing the shuffled array. So that's what this while loop is doing. So index equals a random number, and with that random number, we're going to push that random item onto the shuffled array. Then we're going to splice, which means we're going to with a 1, which means we're going to delete it from the list array. So this will keep decreasing by 1 until when it's 0, it will jump out the loop. Then we're going to set the list array to the new shuffled array. So this list will be empty now. So we're going to set it to the new randomized shuffled. So let's see what that brings. Okay, if I do a refresh, so it's adding, removing. So if I add a few, let's see if it shuffles. Okay, so we can see it's shuffling, but it's not animating. So if I do remove everything and shuffle, and okay, so when we animate it, we can see this moving because we've got the same item now. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is the animation. Now for the good part, doing the animation. Okay, we need to go to the template part, and we need to change the UL elements to a transition group. Now in transition group is a Vue template element that allows you to facilitate animation. So here I've just typed in transition group as an element, and I'll have tag as a UL, because this is going to be I'm just replacing the UL with a transition group, but when it gets rendered it's going to be a UL. So, and also I'm giving it a name with list. Now what happens is whenever we dynamically add a list item element, one of these, it will generate a set of classes: a list enter, list leave, list to, and these are the classes that we need to style. So this is all we need to do on the template part. And now we need to go to the CSS part. Okay, so in the CSS part, if I go down to the bottom, okay, and I'm gonna add these classes. Okay, so it's going to be list enter active, and list leave active, list move, and then in the list, so all these generated classes will have a transition which is 500 milliseconds, and this is the smoothness of the animation. So then we also have a transition property. It's going to have opacity and transform. So basically what we're saying is we're going to animate the opacity and the position. So now we go to the individual list enter style animation. Okay, so we're gonna start off with, so the list enter is the starting position of the element. So we're gonna have it as opacity 0, we don't want to see it, and we're gonna have a translate of 50 pixels and a scale of 0.5, so it's going to be half the size. So it's gonna grow. That's so in the list enter 2, this will be the ending animation attribute. So I'm going to say opacity is 1 and translate to position 0 and scale to 1. So it's going from half size to full size. So that gives you an animation effect. So and when we're leaving, we also are gonna animate the position. So yeah. So we just make it position absolute and then it disappears. So if I save this, now if I go and refresh, so if I add, there you go, so it's got a smooth animation there, and there again. So if I remove, there you go, and if I shuffle, so the animation is quite smooth, and we can play around with this and it works. Okay, we can take this a step further by adding some bounce effects to it. So in order to do that, we're gonna add in some extra animation styling. So okay, what we need to do is we're gonna redefine the list enter active and list leave active, and then we're gonna have some keyframes so that we can have finer control of the animation. So you know you can say what to do at 50%, 0%, 50%, 100%. So that means you can take control of the time of the timeline. So so this is what I'm going to be doing. So first of all, I'm going to change the list leave active, and I'm going to make it opacity 0, so it fades out when it leaves, and I want to transform the scale to 0, so it shrinks to 0. Now in the list enter active, I'm going to call the animation, because I've got the keyframes bounce in animation, so I'm going to call that. Instead of defining the animation here, I'm going to call an animation bounce in, and I want half a second. And on the list leave, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to reverse it. So it's going to go from 100% to 0%. So it's just whatever I'm animating here, it's going to reverse back. So it saves a lot of time redefine that. Okay, so when at 0%, I want to transform scale to 0. So that's the starting position. Then at 50%, I want to transform it to 1.25. So it's going to increase it larger than it is. So then at 100%, I'm going to scale it to its actual size, which is a scale to 1. So when I reverse it, so it's going to start from actual size and it expands, then it shrinks. So that's what the reverse does. So if I save that and go and look at that, okay, so if I add, see the bounce, okay, and if I remove, it bounces out. So that's the cool thing about animating with keyframes. You can have extra more advanced effects. So that was the end of the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for other good tutorials. Thanks for watching.